Uniting Presbyterian Church in Southern Africa continues to embrace the Grape initiative of the World Communion of Reformed Churches. UBIC says everyone is entitled to basic income. UBIC says let us try to close this growing gap of inequality among the people of South Africa. UBIC says, let's try by all means to live together. You know what UBIC says is in line with what the Shona people of Zimbabwe say when responding to Merara say, they say, Narara kana marara, so I slept if you slept. So all that UBIC tries to do is to bridge this gap so that we cannot sleep when others did not sleep because of hunger, because of starvation. So it will mean everyone has something on the stomach before they go to bed. And it is an opportune time now because the government seems to be supporting the idea of UBIC. The President of South Africa has already announced the plans of the government. But what's important for us from the side of Grape is to make sure that that is implemented and implemented in such a way that it grants dignity to every human being. So UCSA will always be there with the WCRC to make sure that South Africa becomes equal. Everyone in South Africa enjoys human dignity.
My name is Neoma Venter and I'm the General Secretary of the Dutch Reformed Church in South Africa. So inequality is one of the reasons why we as Dutch Reformed Church would support a universal basic income grant. And we know that inequality in South Africa is a very complex matter, but we need to acknowledge that this morning, today, 25% people in South Africa does not have the ability to live above the basic food line, which means 760 rands a month. That is unthinkable. It's unbearable to think of. And it's also unacceptable. God is a God of justice. The other factor that I think we need to take in consideration is from an ecological perspective, climate change, environmental shifts that are increasingly affecting the lives of people, especially in vulnerable communities. So a universal basic income grant, I think, can provide a safety net for those whose jobs and ways of life are disrupted by environmental changes, helping them to adapt, helping them to survive. We see more and more floods, fires because of seasonal changes, storms, and unfortunately, all people are affected by that, of course, but unfortunately, so much, even more in vulnerable communities.
Yes, I'm Liepo Modise, the Reverend and a professor in United Reformed Church. I'm teaching systematic theology in the University of South Africa, the moderator of the United Reformed Church at the General Synod level. I support that universal basic income grant will definitely bring a change. My first point of departure in terms of theology, it will be the Belhar Confession. That the basic income grant will assist the churches and the people of South Africa to stand where God stands. And by advocating for basic income grant, using the the World Communion of Reformed Churches and the United Reformed Church as a member church, we will have to push the filthy rich people in South Africa, the billionaires and the billionaires in this country, to show them that people who are going to bed hungry, they are the image of God, and they need to stand where God stands. Secondly, I will go the liberation theology perspective, that basic income grant, it emanates from the theology of the preferential option for the poor. South African Council of Churches General Secretary Bishop Dr. Malusi Mpumulwana once said, based on the poverty and unemployment and inequality that we are faced in South Africa, we are like a country that is riding on a tiger. Immediately when you get off the back of the tiger will finish you. But based on the structural violence that you are facing in South Africa, poverty, unemployment, killings of one another, it is a time that basic income grant should be introduced to South Africa, so that we will try to narrow the gap between the poor and the rich.
Hello, I'm Father Michael Lapsley from the Institute for Healing of Memories. I have always supported the basic income grant because for me it is a way that we give dignity to all people. And I think as a Christian, support for the basic income grant is fundamentally because we believe that all human beings are made in God's image and likeness. All human beings have dignity simply because we're human. And grinding poverty actually dehumanizes people and produces great trauma. So because of our faith, it motivates us to support the basic income grant. It is disturbing that for the last 20 years, we have been talking about the basic income grant. I remember back to the Taylor Commission, which provided all the economic arguments for and against, and addressed those who were objecting to it. So I think the faith community needs to be in the forefront of supporting the basic income grant, which will enable every South African to have the basis of a decent human life.
Why do we need to support, or we support UBIG for South Africa? It's because it is an inevitable crisis of poverty and inequality. Stats shows crystal clear the gap between the rich and the poor, and they have not at all. It is enormous. Thus, I wouldn't like to delve on that as an obvious matter. I would advocate the evidence that shows a basic income, that it leads to improved health outcomes like nutrition and true redistribution. It increases a basic to build people's economy, fostering economic activity, and reducing crime. It is also a fairer way to sharing the wealth in our society to all and promoting a more stable and democratic nation. A universal basic income embodies the principles of empowerment, allowing individuals to move out of the dependency to struggle for daily survival, take charge of their income.
I'm Reggie Neal. I'm a professor in missiology and also the dean here at the Faculty of Theology at Stellenbosch University. IG, the big basic income grant, then in the South African context and the broader African context, it is so relevant as a viable option to make a change, but specifically to address the question of inequality. South Africa, with Brazil perhaps, has this unfortunate reputation to be one of the most unequal countries in the world in terms of our Gini coefficient, but also a country that really battles with how do we address poverty in a real way. And I firmly believe, that we need to look at viable options, practical options that can be done to make that change. Now, often church communities have focused on welfare, charity, addressing immediate needs through aid programs, and that is important. That's what we can do on a local level. But governments also need to join hands with church communities, with NGOs, to in a real way make a difference in terms of the bigger scale. And that's where the basic income grant comes in. It is a contribution by all the taxpayers, especially those who are privileged, who are rich, wealthy, through tax, to contribute not only to the treasury, but through the basic income grant, to contribute also to address inequality. And to join hands, whether it be with the WCRC, with the Grape program, and with various faith communities, so that we make a real change in society.
My name is Archbishop Thabo Makgoba. And so introducing a universal basic income offers a concrete and powerful policy solution to advance economic justice, providing a guaranteed minimal level of income frees people out of the vicious cycle of poverty. And it is or must be a prerequisite for our country in order to achieve inclusive economic development. It not only alleviates immediate hunger and deprivation, but it will promote local economic development, bottom up. Now is a critical moment for action in the history of our country. All parties in the new government of national unity have put the fight against poverty, inequality, and unemployment in their manifestos. Now, they not only have the opportunity, but in fact, the obligation to put the necessary strategies on top of the agenda. A universal basic income is the yardstick of the new government to achieve tangible results and improve the lives of many millions of South Africans now. A universal basic income is the starting line and a prerequisite which provides a platform to kickstart equitable and sustainable economic development for all South Africans. Therefore, we as churches, and not in a broader sense, you can name those churches. I want to say also we as Anglicans, as part of the churches here in the country, with the support of various organizations, including the Economic Justice Institute, Pay the Grant, Black Sash, and now Grape, advocate for introducing a universal basic income in South Africa now. The economic landscape is ripe for such a transformative interventions. Thank you, and may God bless South Africa.